Ladies and gentlemen, I'm freshly showered, and it shall begin. World history on. So, as we saw before, half a cake, this time half a thing of rice. Shout out to your hibachi. Thank you. I don't know whose idea it was to open up a hibachi restaurant in Bologna, but thank you, dear God. Freshed it up on Dr. Pepper, and I'm ready to get world history on. Also, before we begin, I'd just like to share with you, just like opening music. Who needs Pinch of Light when you have a banjo at your dispense? Jericho the Shark, back at it again. 0 calorie Dr. Pepper. Shout out to them too. Also found this. Was given this for Christmas. This was my great Christmas present that I was really excited about. It's a cannon. It's a real cannon. You can put little things inside of it and shoot them out. It's a real cannon. But I'm really prepared tonight for this video, and so I'm so ready to get it done over with. I don't know. Let me turn my fan on. As I said, I'm freshly showered. Hair is luscious as usual. And we're ready to go. I've got everything set up to where I will not drop the iPad tonight either. We are burning daylight. We have 15 minutes to get through this, and I want to get the ball rolling. First, we're going to start with the terms to know. So it's Spanish Armada. Been a bit since we talked about that. As I looked some of these up, I don't know why I took my glasses off. It's stupid of me. Spanish Armada is a Spanish fleet of 130 ships that sailed in 1588 under the Duke of Medina to invade England. Now, they went to invade England. Then you had the your next vocab word after your Spanish Armada, the massive fleet that invaded England. You have the English, the Reconquista. That was an English reconquest in Portugal and Spain in a Christian attempt to capture Muslim territory, take it over for God, gold, and glory. Then you have your Spanish Inquisition, which was Ferdinand and Isabella. They tried to maintain the Catholicism. So what I love about this, because of course the Jews are hated in every aspect of your world history book. You have the Spanish Inquisition, where Isabella and her husband both say, Isabella and Ferdinand say, you know what, Jews, Catholics, either you convert to, Jews or Muslims convert to Catholicism or get out of our country or die. Give them their great choice. And then you got your witch craze is your fourth vocabulary word. And once again, I didn't mention at the beginning, but I encourage you to take notes on each of these. Write these things down. It'll help you retain them better. This is a great study tool to watch these videos. This is just part 1. There will be part 2. But write these things down and retain them. Study them over and over again. Watch these over and over again, whatever you have to do, and subscribe to. Shout out to Jeff, by the way. Jeff. You have your witch craze. James brings a witch craze over to England when Elizabeth dies. Elizabeth's death brings James to England to be the king. James, what do you like? What are you afraid of? What are your likes, dislikes, advantages, disadvantages? And James says, I hate witches. So witch craze begins in England. Witch craze has been going on all across Europe and Scotland, especially England now. They're burning them at the stake. If you are... the trials really weren't even fair either. There was a story of a trial in England where they had a 9-year-old girl testify against her mother and say, yes, she's a witch, she's a witch. And just off the testimony of a 9-year-old girl, they killed the mother and 12 other women that were completely innocent of the so-called witchcraft. But so be it. A lot of the people would even admit to witchcraft because life was so bad at this point in Europe for a lot of people, for the peasants especially, they would just say, yes, I committed witchcraft. And they'd be killed. Because a lot, when they committed witchcraft, when they were killed, they were given not an anesthetic necessarily, but they were given something to knock them out. Like they were knocked out when they were burned at the stake for mercy. They consider it mercy. We're going to burn you at the stake, but we're going to knock you out first, just in case that doesn't help at all. But we go on from witch craze to the French Wars of Religion. And the French Wars of Religion, it was fought between Catholics and the Huguenots. Love this war. So the Catholics are big and bad. They've been around since Rome and Catholicism. Then you have your Huguenots, who are your Protestants. Most of the Huguenots are Calvinists. They're persecuted by the Catholics. Catholics and Huguenots cannot get along, so they fight in the war in France over who has the dominance. Is it just Catholicism that will reign, or Protestant Calvinism, what's going to go on. And that the war ends in the Edict of Nantes, when Henry IV of France gives the rights to Protestants, so they're able to worship freely and they have rights in France. So success for the Huguenots, they overtake the Catholics, the Edict of Nantes is signed, and now the Protestants actually have a say in France. Then as we go down here, moving on our way, absolutism. Absolutism is the monarch solely leads power. So if you're monarch, if you're Louis XIV, if you're the Tudors, if you're the Habsburgs, your monarch solely rules the kingdom. A lot of people disagree with this, and as we get into the Enlightenment era, we realize, hey, isn't it kind of weird that just one family centralized is ruling every single thing everywhere? Which it is a little unfair, and it's realized later on. But absolutism is the idea that this entire monarch, this one family, can rule everything and have complete control. And you go into balance of power. So you have absolutism, which gives power to one right monarch. Balance of power gives the power to multiple different people. It balances the power. So as in like a parliamentary kind of thing, you've got power given to multiple different sets of people, or even Democratic or Republican society, where you're given power to more than just one family, one people, which is a lot more fair and a lot more liked by a whole lot more people. Then you get into, after your balance of power, your 30 Years' War, which begins with Ferdinand declaring Catholicism only, which in Spain, like I said earlier, if you're Islamic or you are Jewish, Ferdinand says get out or be beheaded or convert to Catholicism. That begins the 30 Years' War, because other countries around there say, oh, you look at France. France is a primarily Protestant, and you look at all these other countries in Northern Europe, Western society, Western civilization, they disagree with it. So they say, that's not right. We're going to fight for you. We're going to fight for you Jews. We're going to fight for you Protestants. We'll fight for you in Spain. And so that begins the 30 Years' War, which is basically the First World War. Because there's so many people, it's like all of Europe comes together and has this massive religious war, which then is battling over who's got power in France. Next thing they're battling over who's got power in Spain. It turns into this war over 70 billion different things based mainly around religion in the beginning, and then just goes into a massive blob of just who owns this and who owns that, and just complete and utter chaos for 30 years. I mean, destroys most of Europe. Such a financially, the toll was crazy. Over 8 million people died in Germany alone. It was absolutely insane time period to be living in. After that, you go into the inflation, and what this was the inflation is a price increase in a lot of things. You look at food. We talked about meats the other day. In my I thought it was a wonderful reenactment of me being a French peasant. Turns out I really didn't get the gist of it at all. But, you win some, you lose some, live and let die. But as I was reenacting there, the peasants did not get meat. The peasants seldom got desserts or even vegetables. And if you're a serf in Russia, you eat grass. So inflation prices have gone so high, now the nobles are really the only ones that can afford too many things. Influx of gold and silver is what did that, because the Spanish are still bringing in gold and silver. Mercantilism still a big deal, and that's rocketing prices. Everything's going up, which brings us into mercantilism. We said gold and silver, automatically I think, mercantilism. You got mercantilism. Hey, shout out to Jeff. Mercantilism, trading gold and silver, export more than import. So trading is a big part of mercantilism. Where can we go? Where can we trade? Where are our roots? I don't know what that was, but we need to establish that as a dance move. You got your export more than you import. We want to send things out. If we're buying things, we're losing money. If we're selling things, we're gaining money. What do we want? Gold, silver, and money. Then you got your Palace of Versailles. I know we're rushing through this, but I want to be able to finish. There's a ton of stuff on here. Each segment has to be 15 minutes. I only want to go through 2, so I'm going to try to hurry it up here. Palace at Versailles, Louis XIV, one of the greatest of all time. The luscious long locks of hair. The huge palace. Wasn't even completed by the time of his death. 12 miles away from the city of Paris. This place where Louis lived, his nobles lived, and he stayed on campus the whole time. I mean, he was cared for, just all the time. Huge botanical gardens, this great, huge palace with numerous rooms on these 50,000 acres, just a majestic place where all the nobles lived in France, and Louis really had control over all those people, and they all adored him, and being able to live with him was such an honor. Then you have your nobles of the sword and your nobles of the cloth. The big difference here is your nobles in France. In this time period, your nobles of the sword, these are the people that have made them so that are nobles because of what they do in war. They're the ones that fight. They're the ones that are the generals. They're the ones that lead the army of France for Louis, who keeps getting in these wars that are absolutely pointless. And then you got your nobles of the cloth. They're the ones there by their wealth and ancestors, who they are, hereditary. They're the nobles of the cloth. You got your sword, war, cloth, hereditary, which doesn't add up, but well, whatever. You also have your divine right. We go into that. Louis believed it was divine right. He was elected by God. He can make decisions for God. God was on his side. What he said goes because God appointed him, and he's bigger and better than you. And considering everybody adored him, I mean, who wouldn't believe that? And once you get past your Louis, your divine right, all this, you get into your great, awesome English Civil War. Remember it tomorrow. Write it on your hand. Please don't write it on your hand. But JCOCJW, James, Charles, Oliver, Charles, James, William. Charles, he takes out the Catholics. James and Charles have a little rough spot with Parliament. Parliament doesn't like them. Charles, they're just clashing totally. So Cromwell says, you know what, not happening, nope. Comes in there, takes out Charles, says, this is mine now, rules with an iron fist, he's got a great, big, bad military. That doesn't work out either. So, thus comes in Charles II and James. Hey, Charles II, sorry we killed your dad, please come back. They bring in Charles II. James come back, they start bringing back monarchs in England. Well, what happens? Once again, monarchs in England start arguing with Parliament. Now, we're back into war. So we go from one side of the English Civil War to the second side of the English Civil War. Sorry, I'm Brad Wallace today. I'm just hands everywhere. But you have your nobles. Nobles will call William and Mary. They'll say, William, Mary, we got James over here. James and Parliament are arguing. We've got so many things. James trying to take power. We want Parliament to have power, please. So William and Mary, they come and conquer. And boy, they drop it. They come in there and say, hey, this is ours. Nobody argues with them. That's what you have, your glorious revolution. It's glorious because no one dies. It's basically like, hey, we're in here, we're taking over, and it's okay. We do not want to stand in your way for that. The Roundheads are the ones in this time, the English Civil War, that fight for Parliament. If you're on Parliament side, when you have a parliamentary government, you are fighting for the Roundheads. If you're a Cavalier, you're fighting for the king. You want the king to win. Parliament is a group of people, which hundreds of people that make the decisions in England. It's kind of like our congressmen, congresswomen, senators, kind of like that. Instead of one person making the decisions, Parliament makes it. Your glorious revolution, of course, we talked about it, William and Mary. It's so glorious because they came in and just took it all. English Bill of Rights gives Parliament power. You got your Bill of Rights. I have it in here. It's right here. I mean, if you can screenshot that and read through it. I know, terrible handwriting, but you've got basically where king, you don't have much right anymore, not much power. Basically, stuff's taken away from you. Parliament makes the rules now. Parliament's the one that has control, and Parliament gets to make the decisions, which is a good thing, because more than one person needs to make the decisions. Then you have your, let's see, go through here, your English game laws, that shuts down poaching, no more poaching, a lot of, just kind of hunting laws there. Westernization, The Enlightenment was an intellectual movement of the late 17th, 18th century, emphasizing reason, individualism rather than traditions. Now you get to be yourself, your own individual. You are who you are. Descartes, Locke, Newton, they're bringing these in here to enlighten the kingdom. We need enlightenment, our torture, our medical, all these different things that are going downhill. We need to fix all of these. And you have constitutionalism, constitutional government, adheres to the system of constitution. Your government is based on one document, a sole constitution that you live and rule by. Then you have separation of powers, which comes in Montesquieu. You have your judicial, executive, legislative, those three branches, separating where the power goes to and who gets the power. Also another great idea. You have the Encyclopedia, which was written by, Diderot. And Diderot wrote the Encyclopedia to change the way people think. Another big part of the, Enlightenment. Another big part of the Enlightenment. Then you have the laissez-faire, which is a policy, people letting take their own course. People saying, let everything happen the way it has to happen. Let nature take its course. Let these things be. Let them go. We'll finish it out here with the Great Embassy. Peter striving to have a westernized culture, westernization, trying to be more like the West, trying to build your city, trying to build your monarch around the West. Peter strives for that. Then the Briar, second highest in command. The Boyar, second highest in command in Russia, right under the Tsar. Your serf, serfs are bound to the land, not many rights, probably don't leave the land. And then your Junker, that's your nobleman in Russia. No, we kind of rushed through some of those things, but those are your words. Remember, write those down and take heed. Now for part 2.